Now, we're going to hear more about that, but for now, let us welcome our Shim graduates! Welcome our Shim graduates of 2023. Okay, you may all be seated. And now to give a further explanation of Shim and what they have been learning the past 6 weeks, I'll invite up their educator, Resfred Arthur.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, so just as Hannah just shared, the past 6 weeks, we had the Shim program. How many of you know Shim? How many of you know what Shim is? Yeah, many of you do, and I know some of you did it in the past, especially the younger folks here, because this is a tradition within our community that's very similar to the Bar Mitzvah. Very similar to the Bar Mitzvah. So I'm just quickly going to give you a run-through. Later I'm going to speak again, so I'm going to make this very short. Very short. Quick run-through of what the experience. We started November 11th, and yesterday was December 16th, the 6th week, the final session of the Shim program. Next slide, please. Shim, as we know it, means one heart, one mind. That's what Shim means, right? So essentially, it's becoming one with God. And Shim really, the essence of it is the first blessing, being fruitful. Being fruitful. And the purpose of it, I'll get to it in just a second, but the hope is that through it all, they can come to understand who they are in relation with God and develop a deeper relationship with their parents. And so, next slide, please. Next slide. So just like Bar Mitzvah, how many of you know the Bar Mitzvah tradition? I know we might have some Jewish members here as well, but in the Jewish tradition, at the age, what age is it? 13. It signifies get adulthood in the Jewish religion, right? And then they start attending the services. It's really owning your own faith. And so within our unification tradition as well, we do Shim for middle and high schoolers to be able to come to own their own faith. When we were born, a lot of the times we go to church because our parents go to church, right? We believe in God because our parents believe in God. But there's always this crucial point in our own lives where we have to start developing our own lives of faith. Why is that? When I was in high school, I was dorming. I remember one day I was very excited. I woke up in the morning. I wanted to bring my friend to church. So my friend's name was Youngjun. And so I woke up. He was my roommate. I said, "Hey, Youngjun, you want to go to church?" Youngjun said, "I don't believe in God." And then, I never really thought about it, right? I'm from Ghana. I was born and raised in Africa for 14 years. And so in African tradition, you rarely ever find atheists, right? It's either you're a Christian, Muslim, or a traditionalist, but there's always an element of spirituality. So in my mind, I've always thought, God exists. I never questioned. But then Youngjun in that moment told me he didn't believe in God. So I asked him, why don't you believe in God? And Youngjun said, I believe people who believe in God are weak. They feel because they feel they can't do things without God. And they always pray to God to ask for things. And that really hit me, because the truth is that I only ever prayed when I really needed something from God, right? Right before my exams, or I'm getting in trouble, I broke something and my dad's coming home, I'm just frantically praying. So in that moment, I just thought about it. It's like, how real is my own faith? Is it because I'm weak? Now you ask me, it's like, yeah, I'm weak. I can't do things without God. It's like I have pride in that because I believe in God. But back then, it really hit me, and I became a little bit agnostic for a short period of time, about a few months to a year, questioning, trying to understand who God is from the ground up. And so my understanding of God is quite scientific before going to the philosophical realm. And so the reason why I share that story is that since then, I've been involved in youth ministry in New York for 7 years. And that's mostly with high schoolers, middle schoolers and high schoolers. And there's always, every year, one participant will come up to me and share about what their friends are teaching them at school, right? Oh, I don't believe in God because Big Bang, because of Big Bang, because evolution, right? Because we don't talk so much about it. Some of our younger members, first, second generation, the younger members, don't understand truly what we believe in, and as a result, when they hear what someone else is talking about, it seems almost contrary to what we believe in. And so Ilshim is a very specific program for each and every youth to come to inherit that faith, to understand what we truly believe in, and through that, make their own determination, their commitment to the 4 pledges, which I'll go through later. This is going much longer than I expected. So purpose of Ilshim. Number 1, grow your life of faith. Number 2, upholding the value of the blessing through maintaining your sexual purity and living for the sake of others. Number 3 is to develop your relationship with your parents. Number 4, discovering ways to contribute. So the past 6 weeks has been centered on these 4 purposes. Developing a relationship with God. I'm going to give a sermon on this later, so I'm just going to skip right through it. Second one is upholding the value of the blessing, understanding the blessing. What is it? That's so central to our belief, what the blessing is. And also developing your relationship with your parents. That's so important because God stands in that position as our parent, and so do your parents. And also discovering ways to contribute, because we're not just people that exist and come to a community. This community exists because we all choose to be here, and we all choose to contribute to grow and expand this community. Okay, so actually, I'm not going to do the general overview, but you can take a look at it. These were the sessions we went through the past 6 weeks, all about Ilshim, introduction. Number 2, week 2 was Heavenly Parents. Week 3 was Your Family, Your School of Love. Week 4 was about purity and the blessing. Week 5 was about becoming my true self. And week 6 was the Ilshim Pledge. So soon we're going to go over the Ilshim Pledge. Later on, they'll recite it. But without further ado, I'd like us to just watch a quick recap of the past 6 weeks of Ilshim. Now you can start donating.
2 Las Vegas
Thank you. All right. So, to share a little bit about their experiences, we'll hear 2 testimonies today from the graduates. So, for our first testimony, I'd like to welcome up Kichi Watanabe.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you guys. So I was a participant in this year's Las Vegas Ilshim, and overall, I had a really awesome experience led by our older brother, Reshred Hyung, and his wife, Hana Nuna. And I really want to thank them so much, and to everyone else who helped out. It was a really awesome experience, and I learned a lot of things, like how important a family is to nurture a young child into becoming a loving person and to live a happy life. And there's so many things that a family does that a child doesn't really notice at a young age. But as we get older, I think we should start to realize those things, and so we can give that love back to our parents. All these years as a young child, our parents loved us so much, and they gave so much unconditional love and heart to us, and we don't really notice that. But now that we're a little older and around the age where we can understand that, it's really important that we give that back to them. Another thing that I really learned is how important it is to nurture yourself as a human being so you can prepare yourself for the blessing to become the best spouse that you can be. You want to give your whole to your spouse, and when you get blessed, you're not just blessed in the real world, but in the spiritual world, and forever as long as you live in the spirit world. And I think that's really important and beautiful. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kichi, for such a moving testimony. Wow. And for our next testimony, I'd like to welcome up Senki Yasui.
Hello, I'm Senki, and I was in the 6-week Ilshim program, and I'd like to thank Reshred Hyun and Hana Nuna for leading this program. Overall, it was a really good experience for me. I guess my faith really deepened as before, and one thing I learned during this program is that that you also have to nurture yourself as much as possible to be a really good future spouse, and also be able to be the best you can to other people. As an older brother, be the best brother I can to my little brothers and my siblings, or be the best I can to actually everyone in the church. Yeah. So I guess as for me, I was pretty selfish. A lot of times I would be angry a lot at my parents, and talking to my parents, I think I also learned that's really good to have a really good connection with your parents, because God is technically our parents, and to the most similar thing to that is our parents. And I think it's really good to have a really good connection with our parents, so we also have a really good connection with heavenly parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Senki. Can we give another round of applause to our testimony givers and to all our graduates? Thank you so much for those beautiful testimonies. So now we will have a congratulatory address from our Chunchimwon Vice President. He also is very passionate about the youth and is an elder second gen himself. So let us welcome Reverend Jinma Chung.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to want to say the congratulations those who received the certification from today. And I also thanks for the youth pastor, Reshred and Hana. Well, they always ask me to using the facility in the Chunchimwon and then I'm very curious about what they are doing. But I saw that video and then I so inspired about their dedication for the kids for our community. Well, first of all, I'd like to just short the word of the true parents, how they are mention about the education for our teenager. Father's Moon was volume 31, page 274. Before your children reach the age of the 20, your children must establish a relationship with the church and establish a position of faith. In other words, children must have the faith until they reach the third years of the high school. In other words, if your children cannot settle down from middle school to the first or second years of the high school, then those sons and daughters will go out into society. That's our state so far. If you do not secure a place in your family or church until the age of the 17, your sons and daughters will flow into the society. This is a serious problem. Yeah, this is a true parents' message. So that is why we need to really emphasize our nurture, program for the kids. So that is why I suggest, the youth pastor, Respret, why don't you ask the community of the church to make a budget for the education for kids? It is very important. As you saw that, the picture of the Jewish, the 14, 13 years old sons and daughter. Every years they had some, the recite, contest about the Torah. If someone got a first prize, all the community members they donate such a winner. It around $30,000 or $40,000. It is amazing. It is a tradition. What about us? Do we have or not? That is why from now on, we are creating our own the new tradition of the church in Cheonsiman. That is why we really study and then other religion, also true parents' words. So I'd like to say one more time, congratulations, and then we will make another new tradition of our teenager. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Chung, for that congratulatory address. And now I ask you to stay on the stage for our certificates. And also, actually, there were many young adults that supported this Shim program and helped as staff and were team leaders. So can I please ask all the staff who are volunteers for Shim, please stand up. Thank you. We have Tamami, Torao, Oichi, Nori, Jonte, Lisa, and Andy, and yes. And also Oichi, he is the one who really initiated this youth group, is really passionate and taking care of the kids. So we want to welcome him up to prepare their certificates for our ceremony. Okay. And at this time, we'll go into handing our certificates to our Shim graduates. So for the first Shim graduate, we have Senki Yasui. And now we have Kichi Watanabe. Hayato Sato. Sanjin Yanai. Junsei Yanai. Ryuki Yasui. Martin Yokoi. And also Hiro Kosaka and Risako Sato, also our graduates. And congratulations to our Ilsham graduates of 2023! Woo! All right. So now we are going to ask them to line up on the stage. Stay standing here, and if we can invite up now our parents of our Ilsham graduates to the stage for the second part of our ceremony. So a huge part of the Ilsham program is building a relationship with their parents. So the Ilsham graduates had different activities. Each week they had a homework assignment where they had to either interview their parents or serve their parents and even have deep sharings with their parents, offer conditions together with their parents. So it's very special as this dedication and pledge is for their parents and to their parents. And each of the participants wrote a letter of appreciation to their parents. So at this time, you can face your parent if you're a graduate, and they won't read it in the mic, but they will take this time to read their letters of appreciation to their parents. This time, the graduates will offer their Ilsham pledge to their parents, and as well as Heavenly Parent and True Parents. So turn to your Ilsham pledges. All right. Okay, let's all recite our pledge together and offer our commitment. Ilsham Pledge number 1. I promise to make a sincere effort to develop my relationship with God and my life of faith through prayer and through my lifestyle. Number 2. I will strive to inherit the unificationist traditions of honoring true parents, upholding the value of the blessing by maintaining my sexual purity until blessing, and living for the sake of others. Number 3, I commit to the process of growing and deepening my relationship with my parents by practicing healthy and open communication. Number 4, I will strive to find ways to serve the Heavenly Parent, Holy Community, and wider society with my unique passions and talents. Thank you for offering your pledge. And at this time, we will have the ring ceremony. So the parents can offer and put the ring on their child's hand. And this ring symbolizes the commitment that they're making to Heavenly Parent and true parents. And whenever they look at it, they can be reminded of the kind of lifestyle that they're committing themselves to, this lifestyle of integrity, and all of the commitments they made today, as well as their commitment to purity and their future spouse. So parents, you can place the ring on your child now. And the child can bow to their parents. And parents, return a bow to your child. And now we'll give an offering song. Now let us offer an offering song. The Ilsham graduates and their parents will be singing "See Through Children's Eyes." So the truth shall make us free. Why walk when we can fly on the wings of God's true love, higher than the sky? On the wings of God's true love, higher than the sky. Thank you, and now we will have our cake cutting ceremony. So let's all gather around the cake. Okay, and let's sing a congratulatory song. So we'll sing congratulations to you, and then congratulations, Ilshim. Ready? 시작! Congratulations to you. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to Ilshim. Congratulations to you. Woo! Again, congratulations to you. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to Ilshim. Congratulations to you. 3, 2, 1. And 3, 2, 1. All right, once again, congratulations to our Ilshim graduates of 2023. May they all have a life of blessing and true love in their families and future families. So they can now go back to their seats together with their parents, and that will conclude our graduation ceremony. So let's give them all another round of applause. Thank you. One last round of applause, Ilshim graduates. All right, at this time, like we shared before, we'll be having a sermon from our youth pastor, Resfred. He'll be sharing about the values that were shared this morning about Ilshim, but these are also the core values of our movement. And every child that grows up into our movement here in Family Federation learns these values of good character and of relationship with God and their parents in order to support their communities and eventually the world. So let us welcome up our youth pastor, Resfred Arthur.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I think maybe some of you are tired of seeing me up here, but also after that ceremony, I don't know what to say anymore. You know, it's like it's downward. But what I thought would be good to go over was the pledges of Ilshim. The pledge of Ilshim. So if our youth are making those pledges, I imagine it's applicable to all of us, right? Because the pledge that some of us made years ago, but are tied to our core belief and our core tradition as unificationists. And so I'm going to go over each of them one by one. And my sermon title is The Life That We Live. And why do we live the way we live? Okay, so before I move on to anything, you may notice our senior pastor isn't here. So Dr. Keon Kim is currently joining us through Zoom, and he just attended the I forget the exact event, an ACLC event, True Family Banquet, True Family Banquet in Chicago at T.L. Barrett's church. And he's the founder of it. And so he went there as the main speaker to address all the clergy that came there to award the True Family. So let's give a hand to our beloved leader, Dr. Ki-Hoon Kim. And also, I can't shout too much. I just got my wisdom tooth taken out. I don't think that's a good precedent before a sermon, but trust me, I have maybe a little bit of wisdom left. So I can't shout that much. But I'm going to go over the Ilsham Pledge. The Ilsham Pledge. The first one, can we all read it together? I promise to make a sincere effort to develop my relationship with God and my life of faith through prayer and through my lifestyle. How many of you resonate with that? Oh, some of you, right? About 80% of you. Now, why do we make this promise? The first blessing is be fruitful, right? What does be fruitful mean? Unite with God. Let's go ahead. Yes. So being fruitful means becoming one with God. And this goes back to the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation. So I say this example all the time. But one day someone made this clicker, right? And this clicker had a purpose. It was meant for someone, for me one day, to use this to go through the slideshow. Today, December 17th, right? Now imagine if this clicker was used as a hammer. What happens to the clicker? It breaks, right? The whole precedent of this is that there is a creator and the created, right? And the creator determines the purpose of creation. So we have to understand, in order for us to be happy, in order for us to live our life's purpose, we have to understand who God is. And as we come to understand through the divine principle, the very first thing that's important for us to do is to become one with God. And that's being fruitful. It's to allow God to dwell with us. Because the three great blessings, what's the second one? Multiply. And what's the third one? Have dominion. Now, do you think God wants you to just multiply without being invited into that? No, right? So the whole purpose of the first blessing is to become one with God so God can experience everything with us. God created this world as his substantial object partner to live in and to love through. And so if we don't allow God to dwell within us, then the purpose of creation is not realized, right? And the ideal of creation, consequently, is not realized as well. Ilsham Pledge number 2. Let's read it all together. I will strive to inherit the unificationist tradition of honoring true parents, upholding the value of the blessing by maintaining my sexual purity until the blessing and living for the sake of others. Who resonates with this one? Many of you do, right? And this is the core of our belief. And there are probably about 25 different slides after this, but I might skip through some. But the reason why, in order to understand this, we need to understand the beginning. We need to understand what happened in the beginning. I'm going to do a quick run through. In the beginning, there was darkness. There you go. Let's go on to Kanisha. Darkness. Darkness. And then after that, there was light. There you go. Hey. And then what happened after that? God created the stars above. And then the lands below, the land and the waters. And then, this is just Genesis, by the way. And then the skies cleared up, and you could see the sun, the moon, the stars, right, from the earth. And then what happened after that? The creatures of the land and the creatures of the skies and the water, right? And then what happened next? The creatures of the earth, right? You got the animals on the earth. And what happened after that? God created Adam and Eve. Okay, hopefully this was a good refresher of what happened. And so, what was God's dream for them? To come together in love, right? For them to come together, to unite as one. But then, what happened? The fall happened. So, basically, when God created humankind, God created us to be in his or her image, right? That means that we are supposed to be able to resemble God. Now, someone once told me, he said, when you go to spirit world by yourself and you're not blessed, you're kind of handicapped. Now, what does that mean? It's almost like God created us God created man and woman. And man represents God's masculinity. Woman represents God's femininity. And so, in essence, by ourselves, we do not resemble God fully, right? We resemble an aspect of God. And when we come together, we're able to resemble God. And so when we go to spirit world just by ourselves, it's almost like we're missing half of ourselves, half of what was meant to complete us. And so that's very important to understand. So when God created us, he gave us 3 blessings. He said, be fruitful, that's to become one with him. Multiply, that is to procreate, to love and to procreate, centered on God's love, and have dominion over all creation. Now, in the beginning, we had, in the Garden of Eden, there was Adam and Eve. And what did God say to Adam and Eve? Do not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, right? And we understand that in the Bible, it's the apple. But what do we understand it as? It's unprincipled sex, right? Unprincipled love, relation. But this was not meant to be so dark and gloomy, right? It wasn't meant to be something that we hide from. It was meant to be a part of life, something that was beautiful. And so throughout the Ocean program, it was at one point in time we just explained how it wasn't meant to be dark and gloomy. It was meant to be something brighter, something lighter, something that signifies love, real love. But it's because of the fall that all changed. And so I'm going to go over that really quickly. I know time is running out, so I'll go through that relatively quickly. And so when God created us, this universe, we all follow these 3 stages of growth, right? These 3 stages of growth. What's the first one? Formation. Second one? Growth. And third one? Completion, right? And this is not it's not that at one point you enter formation, growth, completion, and then you're perfect in all things, right? If I wanted to learn how to, juggle balls, right? I can't do it. If I want to learn it, even though maybe you might say I'm at growth level or whatever, when I start juggling balls, what am I? I'm back to formation, right? And so perfection doesn't encompass everything. So we need to really understand what perfection means. But basically, divine principle teaches us that everything goes through 3 stages: formation, growth, and completion. So we understand that at the growth stage, something happened, right? The serpent tempted Eve. And who was the serpent? It was this Chad angel, right? The serpent was Lucifer. Was Lucifer. And out of jealousy, approached Eve. Out of jealousy for God, approached Eve. And what happened with Lucifer and Eve? They got closer and closer and closer, and something happened. And then after that, Adam and Eve went to Adam, and then based on unprincipled love, they consummated their relationship and then had children. So the crux of this is that what happened was Adam and Eve having a relationship with each other was not wrong. But what was wrong about it? They weren't mature, but also, had they fulfilled the first blessing? No. So what happens when we're not able to invite God into our life and our relationship? Then the purpose of creation is not realized, right? And many weeks ago, I talked about how we can become one with God, and that is living for the sake of others. It's through loving. It's through growing ourselves, expanding our hearts so God can dwell within us. But that didn't happen. So what happened after that? If God was not invited into that relationship, that love relationship, then what happens to everything that comes after? God can't claim it. Not God's children anymore. And it goes much deeper than that. Because we all know about DNA, right? In the past, it was just about, you inherit your dad's nose, right? Look at Kichi's nose, you look at Akira-san's nose, There's a very clear resemblance. That's his dad, right? And it was all tied to the physical realm. Like, you're inheriting something physical. But more recently, and many of you know this, epigenetics has shown that we actually inherit our parents' traits too. If your parent really loved drinking, you're more likely to inherit that. You have a propensity to develop that habit too. If you have someone in your lineage who was a chronic, liar or something, you might inherit that too. And so it's very important for us to develop ourselves, because whatever we do not complete gets passed down, but also the good things about us gets passed down too. And so through this, because God was not invited at the beginning, what happened? God's lineage couldn't perpetuate throughout all of humanity, right? And so what was this was meant to be that. Was meant to be something that's beautiful. Something that's beautiful. And so what was the fall? When you come down to it fundamentally, it's just the motive was wrong. The motive was wrong. The tragedy of the fall was that the parents' love was immature, and that was passed down. We talk about principled. What is principled and what is unprincipled? And the reality is that they can look the same, but they said the difference between good and evil is the motivation, right? If you had a murderer, a robber, right, come to someone's house and held a child at gunpoint, and then the dad comes down and he sees what's going on. The dad's got his, his whatever pistol too. Now, if the murderer kills the son, would you say that's evil? Right? You'd say it's evil. But if the dad were to kill the murderer, would you say that's evil? Maybe not, right? But the thing is, the act is still killing, right? So the main point I'm trying to illustrate here is that the difference between principled and not principled is really the motivation. Motivation behind it. You have a knife. A knife can be good, a knife can be bad. The knife itself is not good or bad. It's really the motivation behind the use of that knife, right? You can chop your tomatoes with it, your carrots, you can make sushi with it, but also it can take a life away. And so that's the point I'm trying to illustrate behind even the act of the fall. Relationship between man and woman. The act in and of itself isn't wrong, it's the motivation behind it. It's the heart behind it. That's what determines principled or unprincipled. So as a result of the fall, God lost it all, right? Because God couldn't be invited to the first ancestor of humankind, God lost everything. And God's dream was to have a man who represents his masculinity, a woman who represents his femininity, to come together. So what happened through the providence of restoration? God had to bring back a man and a woman, right? And we understand that 2,000 years ago, who came? Jesus. Jesus came as the only begotten Son, as the only begotten Son of God. But unfortunately, he was taken the way of the cross. But nonetheless, God had established a successful foundation of being able to claim a son who was fruitful. And so that's why Jesus said he will return. And we understand 2,000 years later, we have our true father and our true mother. Let's give him a hand. And our true father in the position of Jesus as the only begotten son, and our true mother as the only begotten daughter. And if you understand the beginning, God wanted a man and woman who could become one with him so that God could be the ancestor of all of humankind. And so that's the mission that the Messiah brings. That's the mission that true parents bring with them. And then through true parents, they establish the marriage blessing. How many of you are blessed here in this room? All right, so many of you. Let's give yourselves a hand. Because this is history. This is history. It's like for the first time ever, God could claim a lineage. God could have man, God could have woman who were under his lineage. God could have children, true children, right? So the blessing, yesterday we went over different exercises with the youth about the difference between the blessing and marriage. And the recurring answer is that it's centered on God and it's under God's lineage. So that's the blessing. And the purpose of the blessing, in essence, is to reverse the motive and the act of the fall. That's the purpose of the blessing. And I know for many first generation, you understand that even more deeply because that was your course. That was the course. And so Adam and Eve chose to pursue self-centered love in opposition to God's command at the risk of their own life. They pursued self-centered love. So what does reversing it look like? Sacrificial love. Sacrificial love in accordance to God's will at the risk of your own life. And so this is a complete reversal. You have people right now, and many of you are here, who chose to reverse that act through self-sacrifice. And I know many of you know this. You have your own course. You went fundraising for 7 years. You couldn't pick your husband. You couldn't pick your wife. What does that symbolize? It's completely selfless. Does that make sense? Like you weren't pursuing something or someone, but you gave it up for God to do so, for God to bring that person into your life. And through that, we're able to lay a foundation for a reversal of the fall. And that's a condition, of course. Father has said many times that this is a condition and that we have to actually fulfill it, right? After the blessing. But essentially, that's the quintessential point. Reversing the fall is sacrificial love. Sacrificial love. And that's for the first generation. And for the second generation is to understand the heart of it. Because the ideal for God was that the second generation after the first would be able to, Adam and Eve, they knew each other. They knew that they were going to eventually get married to each other. They were meant for each other, right? It wasn't supposed to be like, oh, actually, God prepared someone else for you. That's the course of the second generation. First generation come to God. They're the first people who come to God in their lineage and turns their lineage around so that the second, third, fourth generation can be born. And so the ideal of God can be realized from the beginning. It's almost like we started a race, and then at some point we went back past the starting line, and now we're just getting back to that starting line. That's the providence of restoration, to get to that point. But the heart of it stayed the same. Actually, this is Akira and Yoko Ota. They give a testimony to the Ilshim participants. They give a testimony to the Ilshim participants about their blessing. The reality is that during their blessing, if you may not see it so well, but they don't look too happy, right? And they share their story because they couldn't participate in the blessing together, right? Mrs. Ota's flight they ran out of flight because everybody was flying to Korea. So she just came in late and then just took a picture together. Never met each other before, never communicated before, and just came in. But this is sacrificial love. And as a result, you have with them a son today, Tora Ota, right? A second generation. So that's what we teach in Ilshim. What happened and why you are here today. Sacrificial love. All of that was just for the second one. I'm going to go through quickly the next two pledges. The third one, let's read all together. I commit to the process of growing and deepening my relationship with my parents by practicing healthy and open communication. Hyojong, right? God is our parent. God is our parent. But God, as a being, doesn't have a body. God, as a being, cannot relate directly with you. We all question, is God talking to me or not, right? Like it's hard to even comprehend. The Bible, like I said, God is incorporeal. And we can't even understand that, what that means. God does not have a body. But in order for God to relate with us, God brought what? True parents. Because true parents, we know, they're man, woman. When they talk, we can hear, we can understand. So that's important. That's who true parents are. But even beyond that, true parents aren't going to be with us forever on this earth, right? True father already ascended. 30, 40 years from now, true mother may also be in spirit world. But their lineage continues. And what they want to teach us is for each and every one of us to become true parents too, right? So that our children and our children's children can still have that relationship with God. We learn a lot about the four-position foundation. You have God at the top, and then you have subject, object, partner, and there's a union. Now, with true parents, you have God, true father, true mother, and us. But it also boils down to this structure, right? You have the parents, and you have the father, mother, and the children. And so, that's the grandparents, actually. Grandparents, father, mother, and children. And so we're supposed to stand in that position too, to grow, to develop, and to be able to understand the heart of God through this four-position foundation. And so through Ilshim, the third pledge, it's about deepening my relationship with my parents. Because the reality is that a lot of the problems that we have in society stem from broken families, right? Stems from families where children feel scared to come to their parent, to not to share anything. And when things are done in the dark, eventually it's too late. Something happens. And so our hope for each and every one of them was to, throughout this program, get closer to their parents. And that through that relationship, they can be guided to grow to become true men and true women of God. And the final pledge is, can we read all together? I will strive to find ways to serve the Heavenly Parent, holy community, and wider society with my unique passions and talents. The reason why we're all here today is because each and every one of you is making a conscious choice, a conscious decision to keep this going, for us to grow, for us to expand, right? The reason why we have food here today is because we have Hiroko Gomez who donates bagels every week. You probably didn't know. Where's Hiroko-san, Mrs. Gomez? Right there. She donates the bagels. And you have Atsuko-san, you have Yoko-san, you have so many others, like a young second generation as well, who help put it all together so we can have food. And so this community is built and motivated by our own contribution to it. And that's the pledge they're making, that we're no longer a bystander, a spectator. We're an active member. And we're going to help continue this tradition and this lineage. So what community do we want to build? What does that community look like? We want to build Chonoguk, the kingdom of heaven. What does the kingdom of heaven look like? Right? Many of us have an idea. When I was 6 years old, my mom told me a story. She says, there's heaven and there's hell. And heaven and hell are very similar. The similarity is that everyone's got a big spoon, right? And when you eat, you all gather around your dining table and you all have a big spoon. But the difference between heaven and hell is, in hell, when people grab their spoon, they put it into their bowl, they try to feed themselves. But what happens with the big spoon? It hits the person next to them, right? So everyone is trying to feed themselves, and they're just knocking each other's heads up, and they just start fighting because they're feeding themselves. And so people are angry. But in heaven, people feed the person in front of them. Not themselves, but the person in front of them. And as a result, everyone gets to eat, and everyone's happy. So when I was 6 years old, my mind just opened to, wow, heaven and hell it's not just a burning place and a nice place, but it's really us, our character, who we are, that determines that. And if we want to build the kingdom of heaven, maybe we need to understand that instead of serving ourselves, we should serve one another. And that's why true parents talk about living for the sake of others. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much.